What's up, world? It's Ryan Banta again, just coming at you guys before the 4th of July. This conversation today about being coaches, 5 reasons why colleges and universities should hire high school coaches is a very, very, very biased top 5 on my part. So, all full disclosure here, a completely biased top 5 for today. However, I do think it's an important one when we look at a lot of coaching in the world and specifically in track and field. I think that for whatever reason, colleges and universities, and maybe even some head coaches and the guys who are actually hiring some of these people or recruiting some of these people to coach with them, when you go to these places and you look at the applications and they have dozens of years of college experience or being an Olympic athlete, is the people that we're looking for. And as nice as that may be to have an athlete who has a lot of experience and is an Olympian and things like that, that doesn't necessarily make them a good coach. And so the top 5 today is an interesting one. It's a controversial one. It might get me in trouble with a couple of my friends, but that's okay. It's all love out there, but I think it's an important topic. So number 1, when we look at excluding high school coaches, it's kind of like the back in the day when you were trying to get a credit card. How do you get credit if you don't have credit? How are you supposed to be a NCAA coach if no one will hire you unless you are an NCAA coach? And one of the problems with that is number 1, a lot of NCAA coaches don't get paid all that much money. So that's a huge problem right out of the gate. You probably need to pay your coaches a little better salary. And that's not just for assistant coaches, but also head coaches don't get paid that much. I mean, in comparison to a lot of other people, that's a problem. So a lot of high school coaches who would be interested in coaching college don't even try, because me as a teacher of now 11 years going on 12 years teaching experience and 17 years as the head coach of the girls track team at Parkway Central, I make more money than most of the assistant coaches do in the country outside of the Power 5. So number 1, you're asking these people to make a huge financial sacrifice to come coach in your program. So that's a problem, but how do you get that experience if no one will give it to you? I think the universities and colleges need to change their thinking. They're very concerned that, people don't understand what this is like. The toughness and rigors, if you will, of being a college coach is so hard, and you're always going and you're always into it, and it's a 70 to 80 hour a week job. Have you met a high school teacher, a good high school teacher? We don't just work from 9 to 5. We coach, after we teach for 8 hours. I go and I show up at work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I leave work at 6 o'clock every day. That's 11 hours a day. And then you add in cross-country meets and track meets. Well, cross-country meets tend to be a little shorter. You're talking 4 hours, maybe 5 if it's a huge invitational. Track meets are 12-hour events in high school, just like they might be in college. However, you just had to work an entire schedule of teaching multiple classes. And some of us teachers have 4 to 5 preps. We have over 100 plus students in all total of all those classes. Then we have to design workouts, deal with parents, and create lesson plans, and we have to grade once in a while. So like the time schedule thing, that isn't real, in my opinion, a really good excuse. The other thing is when you're excluding all coaches that are in high school, just simple mathematics is you're cutting out tens of thousands of potentially good coaches, regardless if they have high school experience or not. They have experience in college experience or not, but they have experience coaching the sport of track and field. And if they've shown over a long period of time that they have the ability to coach the sport, then why wouldn't you just give them an interview? Now, I'm not talking about Joe Schmo who's down the street, who's an assistant coach at a high school, who's only had one good all-state athlete. But down the road, we got a guy, not down the road, but on the other side of the state, we have a gentleman named Jesse Griffin. Jesse Griffin was the coach of the year for the United States 2 years ago for all of high school track in America. His team by itself was ranked top 17 in the state if it was representing the entire state of Missouri against all the other states. It put us like in 17th place amongst all the states just with his athletes. That's a good coach with a great program who's won numerous state championships, both in track and field and cross country. And what's really interesting in track, the distance kids aren't the ones that are winning them for him. They're good, but he's got really good throwers and good jumpers and good sprinting events. That guy is a college coach waiting to happen. And I don't know if he's tried to interview anywhere or anything like that, but for him to be excluded because he has no collegiate experience as a coach is shameful. The other thing is most of the really great coaches that I've ever met who actually know how to teach stuff are from the high school level. They're from the high school level, most of the best coaches. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't the Dan Paffs of the world or the Tom Telezes or any of that. Those types of coaches are really good. You know, you've got Pat Henry. But what's interesting is a lot of the great college coaches also have high school experience. Dan Paff had high school experience. Pat Henry had high school experience. And then we don't have to look at track and field. Look at football. The guy when, Cam Newton was at Auburn, that guy was a high school coach, and he wins the national title a few years later. The gentleman who just won the Super Bowl with the Eagles, high school coach. Isn't that interesting? So why aren't we looking towards those people as individuals that we want to bring into our program? All right. Number two reason, management. If you're hiring a high school coach and you're like, well, they don't know how to manage college teams, they don't know how to recruit, they don't know the NCAA rules. Well, give me the NCAA rule book on how to recruit and what I'm allowed and what I'm not allowed to do. This is not brain surgery. This is not rocket science. And when they're like, well, you don't know how to recruit high school kids, I don't. That's what I do. That's what all successful track and field coaches do. They just don't get to recruit through the whole United States, but they get to recruit inside their building. I get in trouble, not legally or rules wise, but I get in trouble because of my enthusiasm, and what I do within my school, because I'm recruiting a lot of kids. Even though the enrollment in our school is going like this, my numbers on my track team have stayed like this. And last year, our whole entire high school was just really cool. We were like the athletic directors cup for the St. Louis area because we had one of the best overall athletic programs. And I pride myself as being a small part of that whole. We had a really good year last year, and a lot of the other teams did really great. State champions and state Final Fours all over the place. And we were actually the only public school that got that nomination in the Missouri side of St. Louis. So that's really cool. But anyway, we have to recruit. People are like, oh, well, you might not know how to manage all those things. I'm a head coach of a track team, and in high school track, you have 19 events. A lot of times you have to run off track meets. You have to make sure you fill out all the paperwork. You've got tons and tons of angry parents that want to talk to you about why their son or daughter isn't running or doing a particular event or how their training isn't up to snuff. We deal with that stuff all the time. And again, on top of that, we have to be teachers in the classroom and design lesson plans and grade papers and do things like that. So the management aspect, it's just different people. Now instead of a high school athletic director, I have to deal with a college athletic director. Recruiting a good staff. There's plenty of people that want to coach college track and field. College coaches, former pro athletes, and obviously other high school coaches and club coaches. I mean, there are people out there that routinely do some really, really great things. And the good thing about having these people is that because they've been high school coaches for a while and have a proven track record of success, you also probably know that they're responsible, that they're not going to get fired, that they're not going to do the two major rules in education. Number one, you don't touch the money. And number two, you don't touch the kids. Okay? You know that because they've had a long track record to prove that to you, besides just going through the basic, background checks and things like that we have to do to get a job in public education as a coach and things like that. So it's really incredible to me that people don't seem to understand that high school coaches have already done that. Yes, the stakes, I guess, are higher. There's money being set out there. There's a lot of athletes, but most high school coaches also coach more athletes than a typical college coach does. College coach might only have, 20 or 30 people in their group, where a high school coach might coach 100 or 150 if you're like Marquette High School, where they got just a ton of kids down the road from me. So to me, that excuse doesn't make sense, because I actually believe the high school coach, over a long period of time, if they've proven that they have the ability to do that. Okay. Number 3, if you're a high school coach, you got to know how to coach everything, because sometimes there isn't a specialist that coaches the pole vault or the shot put or the long jump or the triple jump. So if you don't learn about the event, it might not get coached. And so you got to know how to do that. You might have to coach more than one event group at the same time. In winter conditioning, oftentimes me and my diehard in the foxhole with me, Coach Merriman, we're 2 coaches with 40 athletes the entire winter. And it's a different 40 athletes, by the way, every day. So, there could be long jump, triple jump, hurdles, throws, football players, lacrosse players, soccer players, baseball players, all training with us in an off season. And you got to know how to prepare all of them physically. But specifically to the sport of track and field, you got to learn that stuff, because if you don't learn that stuff, you're not going to be great. Vern Gambetta, a while ago, who I included on this, I tagged him on this video, he always talked about being a generalist. And so good high school coaches are generalists so that they can coach everything and they can see how things connect. Pro coaches might not do that because they've been in one teeny weeny area. A lot of people who get hired for college jobs are grad assistants. So they've never been forced to figure this stuff out. A lot of times, because they're so young, they just do what their coach did or the workout that they had, and cut and paste workouts, which is one of the should be a top 10 thing you don't do all the time. You got to know why you're doing what you're doing and when you're supposed to do it. High school coaches have a better understanding of how to do that because they've been forced to do it, because if they're not doing it, and again, you're not going to hire a high school coach that doesn't do this because they don't have a proven track record. You're only going to hire them if they do. So again, a high school coach knows how to put these things together and has an understanding how to put these things together for all different events. So guess what? If I'm having a throws workout and a jump workout and a hurdle workout, I could put the hurdles up and have my jumpers hurdle, have my throwers throw med balls right next to them and do low amplitude bounding, okay? And then have my jumpers jump over the hurdles. And they're all right there, right next to you. You got 4 things going on at one time. And because you've got all these general skills you're trying to teach. And if you make a better athlete, your college athlete's probably going to be better because you can connect the dots between all the different things that they're good and bad at. Because we have to do that. It's a necessary evil. Okay. The other thing, we're teachers first. What does that mean? Why is that a good thing? Why is that a better thing? This is number 4, by the way. Well, we understand, because we're a high school teacher and we associate with these kids on a daily basis in the classroom, we know that they're more than just meat that we make run really fast around the track or down the runway or through the ring. We know that. We know that they're students first, because these kids go to your college, they go to your university, they're going there for a college education first, and very few of them are going to be professionals. So I feel like we are better ready to understand and prepare them to be a complete package person, a Renaissance person, if you will. And most of the college athletes you're going to deal with are going to go pro in something else besides track. And I feel like because we're high school teachers, we understand that process. We know what it is to be an educator and to have the kid in the classroom, and maybe they don't get along with you as well. We understand what it's like to be a kid and to be stressed out about your boyfriends and girlfriends and all these different people that you have in your daily life. And then we understand how that's a real tough struggle to balance the 8 hours a day of classroom work, and then to come out for another 2.5 hours and bust your butt till you're ready to puke, or you're just exhausted that your legs can't stop shaking. We understand that. We're better prepared for that. And that's a truth. No offense, but that's a truth. A good reason to hire a high school coach to be a college coach is they have a better understanding of that student athlete perspective, because they live it alongside those students. Last thing, number 5. I believe that high school athletes are better able and better prepared, high school coaches are better prepared and better able to build an athlete that has no experience in an event and teach them to mastery. Now, why is that? Because we have to do that all the time. Unlike every other sport in high school, kids are prepared for those sports. Every other sport, when they come to track and field, it's the first time they've probably ever done track and field. And yes, some of these things are very simple. Go from point A to point B, run as fast as you can. But you and I both know, because we're track people, you and I both know that it is not that simple. It's more than that. And you know that, okay? We are responsible for teaching a track athlete who has never hurdled in their life to hurdle. Now, some of you guys have to do that because you got athletes that become multi-eventers and stuff like that. But more often than not, if you've already recruited them to be a multi-eventer, they probably already hurdled. So somebody's already done the work for you. And a lot of times what happens with these college coaches and people like that is they're like, well, this is all wrong. And then they spend hours and hours and hours refining the technique. Well, good, you should, because you're getting paid lots of money, some of you, to do that. Okay. And that's important to have happen. But think about how hard it is to take that kid from who's afraid to even go over the hurdle in a competition to 3-stepping, to running 10 barriers, to then running fast and learning how to cut step and do all those types of things that we have to teach kids in high school to do. If you get a college athlete with a coach who's a high school coach and knows how to take an athlete from 0 to hero, you've got a much better coach who's probably a generalist, who understands the student athlete perspective, who can build that athlete up and get them ready, who's ready to manage large groups, who's responsible, who won't touch the money, who won't touch the kids, who's proven over a long period of time that they're ready. Why not hire that person? Why not take that must-have NCAA experience off of the application? You can still say they need to have 10 years high school experience. That will cut out a lot of clowns for you. Or you could say must be a head coach at a high school. But cutting it with the NCAA only experience, you're limiting the pool and you're limiting veteran coaches who at some point could help you out. And they probably can't help you out for free, but their experience is worth the money. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.